Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Act 378 Subcommittee. Rakisha has done a good job of giving me this agenda to follow. So if any problems, it's all my fault at the beginning. So we're gonna call the meeting to order. I think we have a quorum. We do? Okay, we don't have to call the roll. So, right? Oh, no, you do have to call the roll. Okay, go ahead, Rakisha.
All right, Ms. Gonzalez. Ms. Haynes. Here. Ms. Wynn.
I'm here.
Mr. Bianca. So Tony, you got unmute. Tony. You got unmute. We'll come back to him. We'll come back. Ms. Stewart. Mr. Taylor. And Ms. Zoo.
Thank you, Rakisha. Before we get started, I just wanted to remind you all of a few rules for committee members and members of the public attending in person. Please raise your hand to speak and wait to be recognized by the chair before speaking. To help the meeting run smoothly, please keep side conversations to a minimum and comments related to the topic we are discussing. For those committee members who are attending virtually, remember your camera must be on and have your first and last name showing to be counted towards our quorum. Please keep your microphones muted unless you are called upon by the chair. Electronically raise your hand to request to speak and wait to be called on by the chair. For attendees, electronically raise your hand to request to speak. Once recognized by the chair, your microphone will be turned on. After speaking, the microphone will be returned to mute. Also, the Q&A is to only be used by those needing an ADA accommodation to participate in the meeting. Public comments will not be accepted via the Q&A except for those individuals who requested the accommodation. As for order, committee members in person and virtually will be allowed to speak first. Public members in person will then be called on, followed by public participating virtually who have their hands raised. Comments in Q&A will be addressed last. As with all hybrid meetings, it can be difficult to keep track of those wanting to speak in person and virtually. Please be patient. All comments and questions from the public may be subjected to 2 minutes at the discretion of the chair, so please keep that in mind. Depending on time constraints, we may also limit comments for once per issue. All comments about a person's character will not be allowed. Finally, members of the public will have the opportunity to provide public comment before each vote and during designated public comment periods. The chair may also use their discretion to determine if comments will be accepted outside of those times. Okay, so now we will move to the agenda. Everyone should have reviewed the meeting summary, which is attached to the agenda you received via email. There's also a copy in your committee packet. So I will need a motion to adopt the January meeting summary.
Motion adopted with the January meeting summary.
We have a motion by Mr. Taylor. We need a second.
I'll second.
We have a second by Brooke. Ms. Stewart. Any, let's see. Is there any discussion? Any public comments? Okay, we will now do a roll call vote. A vote yes is, do we have to do a roll call vote? Okay, a vote yes is to approve the minutes, is that right? The minutes, and a vote no is to not approve. Rakisha, can you call the roll?
Ms. Gonzalez. Ms. Haynes. Yes. Ms. Wynn.
Yes.
Okay. You gotta unmute, Tony, to let us know if you approve the minutes.
Can you push to ask him to unmute? Maybe he's having difficult. So Tony, I think they're pushing the button to ask you to unmute.
There we go.
Okay, there you go. Can't hear you though.
Would you like to approve the minutes? Tony, can you hear us? Ms. Stewart? Yes. Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Ms. Zoo?
Okay,
That's 5 yes.
thank you, Rakisha. The motion to accept the January meeting summary has passed unanimously with 5 votes. Okay, next we're moving on to our SPAS report. Who's giving that report? Let's see.
Kelly?
Is Kelly on? Oh, I didn't see you on the screen, Kelly. So Kelly Monroe with the Arc of Louisiana is here on this program. Kelly, the floor is yours.
Okay, hello, everybody. You should, well, it's on the screen. I'm sorry, the report is on the screen and you should all have one in your packet. There wasn't much changes from last time. So, we again served, 40 people, as we did in the prior, quarter. And of those, the demographics are, 17 of those, individuals were African-American, 22 were Caucasian, and 1, identified as Hispanic. Of those people, 27 of them were male and 13 were female. The ranges of the ages were from ages 31 to 92. There were no changes in the regions, and so the highest region of participants are in region 7 and 9. So moving on to the next page, everyone receives support coordination. 37 of those individuals received personal care assistance. 3 of them received some type of rental assistance or utility assistance. 10 people, which this was a pretty significant increase from the last one. 10 people received medical supplies or equipment or maybe a stipend, and no one received a home modification or vehicle modification. So the total expenditures were a little bit lower than they were in the previous quarter, totaling $200,763.80. But we still do plan on spending the full amount of the contract. On the next page, you'll see that the waiting list kind of jumped up. It was at 90 people and now it's at 105. So we had 15 more people apply for services over this quarter. The demographics for those individuals are 43 of those people are African American, 50 of those people are Caucasian, 1 is Hispanic, 1 Asian, Caucasian, and there were 10 people that are unknown. Those are the same 10 people that have been on there for quite some time, who have not completed their paperwork. So of those people, 48 of them were male and 57 are female. Again, that's 105 people that are currently on the waiting list. So if you go to the next page, of those applicants, 88 of them are looking for personal care assistance. 18 of them are looking for some type of home modification or vehicle modification. 1 person was looking for dental, 1 for some type of medical equipment or supplies. 36 of them. Oh, that was a big difference. And then 3 people are looking for rental assistance. and 6 people looking for some type of therapy, whether it be physical or speech therapy. If we were to fund the whole waiting list, we would need $2.9 million to fund everybody on the waiting list. Right underneath that is the applicants receiving other services. So you can see that there's quite a few that are already currently receiving some other services, but there's quite a few that have applied and haven't heard anything. So, and then 55 of the applicants, we really weren't able to get any information from them. They just didn't respond, so. But that is the report for spas. I don't know if anybody has any questions. I'd be happy to answer anything that you may have.
What is?
Mr. Taylor?
I'm looking at this 10.583, what is that?
I'm having a little bit of hard time hearing.
This part that's in the red, the 10.582, what is that?
What page?
Six, so that'll be 7.
Oh, if we're just looking at this report.
I'm sorry.
Look, it's the sponsor report.
There
Yeah,
shouldn't be anything in red.
I think you're looking at a different report.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Okay, gotcha. Does anybody else have any questions?
Is there anybody online?
Actually, I do.
I'm sorry, you don't have your,
Whenever, it's okay, I'm sorry, I
I'm
apologize.
sorry, you don't have your name for which,
I'm sorry.
no, that's good. What's your name?
Aiden.
Aiden?
Sorry.
Okay, no, that's fine. Good, back to your question, please.
Out of those 6, are those just the people that are waiting?
Out
On the
of,
wait-
what page are we on? I'm sorry, what page are you looking at?
6.
6?
So, wait a minute, I apologize. I got confused. I'm so sorry, I'll go ahead.
No, that's okay. On page 6, those are all people on the waiting list.
Okay, so okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wait, Kelly, what, where, what is, oh, who is on the waiting list on page 6, Kel?
Say it one more time. It's echoing in there, so it's kind of hard to hear.
Everyone on page 6, that's the people on the waiting list, that's all the services. that
Yeah.
they Requested.
Yeah, all those people are on the waiting list on page 6.
So on both of these 2 charts,
Yes.
Yes.
okay, got it, yeah, thank you.
The first one at the top of page 6 says what type of services they're requesting.
Oh,
The way that people on the waiting list, and then the next chart tells you of the people on the waiting list, what kind of other services are there.
okay.
I probably should have that labeled a little bit better, Jill. So I'll make sure that next time that second chart is labeled, because I see it's not labeled. It is kind of confusing.
And just for people who might be new to this committee and about the SPAS program, at the top of page 1 is a description of the program. What it says, I'll read it. One of the primary principles of which the SPAS program was founded is that adults with disabilities should be allowed to make decisions and live in typical homes and communities where they can exercise full rights and responsibilities as citizens. And so that's what this program does. It's funded through our Office of Aging and Adult Services through LDH. And it, there's other programs that you'll hear about through the DD Council that's funded through the Department of Health. And this is one of those programs in the ARC of Louisiana. administers that program. So if any of y'all have any questions, Kelly can certainly speak to it more than I can, better than I can.
It also offers lots of the same things that waivers do without all of the rules of the waivers. It's very flexible and really allows people to kind of go to work and receive the supports that they need. It's my most favorite service out of all the services that are offered to people. It really is so flexible and so accommodating to families.
So, yeah, I just, this program looks new, so I just curious, what's the difference with the waiver program? And what kind of, people, if they also have a waiver program, also qualify for this program, I'm just wondering.
You hear that, Kelly?
Yes, right.
No, it's a terrible echo. I'm so sorry.
So what she's saying is, just to give her a little bit more information about this program, like how is it similar and different from a waiver program? And her other question was, can people who get some type of Medicaid waiver or other type of services, like what you have listed on the back, can they also get the SPAS program, get services through the SPAS program?
Okay, so the SPAS program offers any type of service that will help someone stay in the community of their choosing. So personal care assistance, medical assistance, rental assistance, home modifications, vehicle modifications, those kind of things. Just basically anything that a waiver would normally offer, this one offers as well. It will allow people to receive other services, but they don't want to supplant those other services. So if someone is offered the waiver and they're receiving the amount of hours that they need, then maybe the SPAS program could offer something else to them. So we don't want to like supplant waiver services to receive these, but you are eligible to receive both at the same time.
Okay, thank you, Kelly.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Kelly?
If you get the waiver, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Mr. Taylor.
Do you, even though if you have the waiver service, and you got 24-hour care, do you still, can get this service too?
It depends on what service you're looking for. Like if you're looking for something that's not covered with the waiver, then yes.
And didn't you say something about the medical too? Y'all do stuff with the medical?
Yep, we offer in some cases medical stipends, but usually we like to purchase them ourselves and just have them sent to your house. So depending what you're looking for, yeah.
Okay, do y'all, last question, do y'all supply like medical beds for anybody that needs it or anything?
Yes. Mhm. Of course, they have to have a disability and they have to be an adult. Your disability did not have to occur, as an adult, but you have to be an adult to receive them.
No question, I know I'm saying this the last thing, but the thing is, if you wanted a regular, a bed that is not a hospital bed, but if you wanted a regular bed that operate like a bed, do y'all, do that?
Yes, if a doctor prescribes it, then yes.
Okay, so
It has to be something that is it has to be something that is to help with your disability.
yeah, and what I'm saying is like, let me give you an example to make sure I'm on the same page, because I know a family that needs assistance. Like I got an elevated chair, a rocking chair, that basically elevates me in the chair and put me down in the chair. Do y'all cover that for a need of transferring out of the chair to the rocking chair for a family?
We have purchased those when a doctor has requested them, yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you, ma'am.
Okay, anything online?
No hand raised.
Okay. So thank you, Kelly.
You're welcome.
Now we'll move on to the Office of Behavioral Health reports. Dr. Savicki. Okay, Dr. Savicki, is here to present those reports. I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Savicki.
Sounds great. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
And maybe I'll give it, oh, there we go. It's up on screen now. So hey, everybody, this is the Q3 report. Had to remember which quarter we're in now. This is the Q3 report for Consumer Care Resources and Flexible Family Funds. We'll start with Consumer Care Resources. As a reminder, I know me and Tanya often say the same things here, that this won't include everything from Q3 because we get these reports to the council before the LGs are actually, able to finish processing invoices for Q3. So the Consumer Care Resources funding, we're looking at what level of expenditures LGEs are at this point in the year. Some of them are under, so we'd want to see if all the invoices were in, we'd want to see around 75% of the funding expended. You can see that there's a handful of LGEs that look to be a little behind. So we ask all of them for information around are they going to be able to expend the funding for appropriate needs by the end of the fiscal year. And all of the LGEs that we inquired about responded that yes, they do have plans in place. Some of them, I know specifically Capital Area and Acadiana often use a different funding source earlier in the year, and then they use all of this funding source towards the end of the fiscal year. So we don't right now have any concerns about the LGs being able to expend these funds by the end of the year. All of them, met that target last year. So we have some faith that they're going to get there. Any questions on the Consumer Care Resources report?
Yeah, Ms. Taylor.
Now I'm on the right one with the question. I wanted to know what this is, 10,000?
The amount read,
Yes.
what is the amount read for Imperial Calcasieu?
So the amounts in red, that's in the column that's labeled budget changes since the start of the fiscal year. And that is MCAL reporting on, let me look down at the notes. They had to reduce their funding. So they had allocated some funding for Consumer Care Resources. They had allocated some funding that came from a federal grant. And I don't know if folks kind of saw this in the news last month, but there were a set of federal grants that came to either the Office of Behavioral Health or the Office of Public Health that the federal government terminated on March 24th. And the letter was received on March 24th and the funding was terminated on March 24th. And some of that funding was being used by the LGEs for various purposes, including for this. MCAL was using some of that funding for this purpose. So given that the funding was terminated on March 24th, any of that grant that they hadn't used yet, they had to pull out from the Consumer Care Resources because according to federal regulations, they weren't allowed to spend any more of it after March 24th. It's a good question. Any other questions on this one before we move to flexible family funds? All right, I'm sorry.
Jill?
So only get the CCR cash grants ended or both CCR and FFF?
I'm sorry, I'm having the same difficulty hearing that Kelly was. Can someone who's closer to the mic repeat that question for me?
I'm not closer to the mic, but I think I'm louder. I think what Jill is asking is, was this the same, was it the same funding that was cut for consumer care resources? Was it cut for flexible family funds? Can you explain that, which you just talked about? Was it any impact on any other programs?
The only impact to these funds that I'm aware of is the specific impact that MCAL reported for the Consumer Care Resources Fund. And it's because MCAL specifically, just MCAL, was using some of that federal money for this purpose. They had put some of those federal dollars into this bucket of funding. And so when the grant was terminated, MCAL had to take that out. As far as I know, MCAL is the only LGE that was using this funding source in that way. Does that help?
Yes.
No, so
Did you have something?
do they have to pay that, what she's saying, do they have to pay that funding back?
She asked, do they have to pay it back? No, they just changed what they budgeted. So they were
Correct.
budgeting in that, but they changed it.
And they had already used quite a bit of that funding, is my understanding. And so that's out the door. It's connected to families who needed it. It's just that the federal government said you could not spend any more of that funding after March 24th.
And as you were saying, MCAL, I just wanted to make sure so that everybody's on the same page of understanding, and this might be a formatting change, but it has on the far left corner, it has LGE, which is the local governing entity on this report and our report for OCDD, and it lists the initials for all of the those local governing entities. And I'm just wondering if people know what all of those stand for. So maybe on the reports, I don't know who's doing those. Maybe put like the region, because a lot of people know the regions 1, 2, 3, 4. What was it, 1 through 10? So it's listed in numerical order, is what you see there. So the first one is metropolitan. Region 1, then CA is capital area, that's region 2, then region 3 is South Central, region 4 is Acadiana area, region 5 is MCAL, or Imperial Calcasieu, region 6 is Central Louisiana, region 7, Northwest Louisiana. I was testing myself. Then region 8 is Northeast Delta, which is the Monroe area region. Then region 9 is Florida parishes, and then region 10 is Jefferson Parish.
And this is the report that they normally determine. So Dr. Subcommittee, did you hear her request to change out maybe add the region?
The template is
Template is generated by the DD Council, so
Okay. I need to update.
correct. So I think just the template needs to stay the same because it's already very dense as far as trying to get this report on a sheet of paper. But what we could do is create a legend that we include in the packet that tells you what these are.
Okay.
And what region they're associated with. You can refer to that, because I'm afraid if we make that column bigger, we're either gonna have to reduce the size of the text that you see on this page, or I don't know, we'd have to recreate the report in a different way to create more pages for you to get off.
Yeah, I just think that somebody that's
Yeah.
that those letters.
When you first mentioned it, I had in my head, we can create a legend, it's just another piece of paper we'll throw in the thing that you can refer back to.
Yeah.
That's probably the easiest way without making this report so small you can't see it. Because it's already there.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, you got
It can get smaller.
The more you ask me to put on there, yeah.
Like, so, but been doing this for 42 years.
Mhm.
She don't need no money.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
We have two hands raised. This is the first one.
First one is Melinda Elliott,
And then who is after her?
and then Brenda Kozak.
Okay, Melinda and then Brenda.
Hi. So
Melinda.
I'm probably not going to use the best terminology from this, but here goes. If MCAL was using a piece of that grant for consumer care resources, are you high enough in the food chain to know what the other human service authorities were using that money for?
So they typically, the LGEs manage their own budgets. So OBH does not get to tell the LGEs how to allocate their funding or exactly how much from each funding source.
Right.
What they do report to us is at times they will report to us in the notes section about any creative funding strategies they use. I think typically they're using state general funds. Some of the LGEs will report to us. So you'll see in the notes section, there's the item number 2, it says, please notate other sources of funding used. And so you will see in some of these notes sections that some of the LGEs use mental health block grant funding. That's actually one of the funding source that was cut was a temporary addition to mental health block grant funding. And so that's a piece of what MCAL was using here, and that's why it was affected by this cut. So some of them are using kind of regular mental health block grant funding to supplement their state general funds. Most of them are using state general funds. Some may be using some local sources of funding, like parish, millage type funding. But that's all very kind of LGE specific in terms of how they do their budgets here.
Does that answer your question, Melinda? Do you have anything else? The next person was Brenda. Ms. Kosei?
Hello?
Hello, Brenda?
Hello?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
Okay, good. With the, under MHSD and NLHSD, I wanted to know what type of, schools, was there any, are there any like limitations or restrictions? Where they have to assist families with school uniforms, summer camp, school shoes, school fees, graduation fees?
Let me make sure I
So
heard
what
the
type of
question.
schools?
The ask was, do those LGEs have any limitations or restrictions on using the funding for school related purchases? Is that, did I get that right?
I think that's what she asked, yes.
Okay. Okay. And not that I'm aware of, each LGE administers their own program. And so they likely have some internal policy about what requests they deem eligible and how they do that. But I'm not seeing any specific information about specific limitations.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Melinda Elliott has her hand raised.
Okay, Melinda, Elliott?
Okay, now I have two things. First of all, if y'all cut off the microphone before I can say if I was answered correctly or answered what if I said, asked it correctly, y'all aren't going to hear me. I was answering your question, Bambi, but the microphone had already been cut off. The second thing is, I understand where consumer care resources come from, sort of. What I'm curious about is there was this federal grant, and MCAL used a bit for consumer care resources, but other human service authorities did not use it for consumer care resources. So do you happen to know what the other human service authorities were using it for? Because that was other cuts that I hadn't considered.
That's a great question. I do not. Yeah, I don't have all that information. There are other people within the Office of Behavioral Health that monitor that larger grant funding and where it goes and which LGEs are using it. I don't have access to that. Certainly not right now.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, Brenda? Ms. Kosei, you can.
Yes, I'm sorry. I was trying to go back through the transcript. Did she know what type of schools, like public, charter schools can, parents can ask for that type of assistance?
I think that would have to be a very specific question to the LGE in question. I don't know of specific, again, I don't know of specific restrictions, but obviously the goal of the consumer care resources funding is for families to request to meet their needs and for the LGEs to determine if that meets the basic requirements in terms of keeping, effectively keeping a youth with a serious emotional disturbance in the home and in the community. So I'm sure the LGEs are reviewing requests with those principles in mind. I don't know if they have restrictions on public school versus private school versus charter, that sort of thing.
Thank you.
Dr. Savicki, just to be clear, these two programs, the consumer care resources and flexible family funds, those are for youth who meet a specific requirement regarding a behavioral health issue, right?
The recipients that are reflected on this report, yes. This report is speaking to the funds that are used for clients who qualify based on a behavioral health diagnosis and behavioral health concerns. OCDD will present the report that speaks to funding that's used for folks who qualify based on a developmental disability.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay, Dr. Savicki, you can go on to flexible family funds.
Great, sounds good. So for flexible family funds, it's a little more straightforward in terms of the expenditures because, of course, families become eligible and then get a regular, as long as they stay eligible, they get a regular payment every month. So as you can see, the percent expended year to date, it's all pretty much right at 75%. The only differences there would be if a slot went unfilled for a month or two while they were trying to get someone else in, they might have slightly less expended. What we look to here is to make sure that the LGEs are keeping those slots filled and not, leaving more than a couple of them unfilled at any given time. Our performance metric is 90% of those slots to be filled at any given time. Understanding that it might take a little time to, once a family drops out of eligibility or moves or a youth ages out, it might take a minute for the LGE to connect the fund to the next eligible family. But right now, the LGs are all meeting that metric of 90% of their slots being filled. Any questions on that?
There's Miss Sherelle Porter. Who's that? Sherelle Porter. Ms. Porter?
Yes. Hi, my question was in regards to the wait list. So exactly what is that wait list comprised of? Is it based off of the current year the LGE is servicing right now, or how is that made up? Because 137 seems kind of low for the state.
So those are families that have initially submitted their eligibility to the LGE, and they've showed that their child qualifies, and that their child qualifies as having an serious emotional disturbance. The family submitted kind of the documentation to verify that, and are put on the waiting list, and then that continues to be updated. So I think it's it's the wait list that they have at this time. And so as soon as a slot opens up, then the LGE needs to then go through that wait list, and verify whoever's next on the wait list, verify are they still eligible, and then connect them to the fund or move to the next down in the wait list. I'm not sure if I answered your question though.
I don't think so.
Okay, can you help me make sure I'm getting there?
Yeah. So like yesterday I was on the RAC meeting and I was speaking with our Region 10 LGE coordinator, and she was saying there was probably at least 500 families on the wait list for flexible funds, but it's only showing 12
So
for
was
Region
that
10.
for the services for folks who are eligible based on developmental disability?
What would be the distinction?
So this report is just for the funding that's allocated for people who are eligible based on their behavioral health diagnosis. So this is not
Okay.
based on they're not showing eligibility based on a developmental diagnosis. They're showing eligibility based on behavioral health.
Mm,
I don't know who's doing the OCDD report, but I know that's later on the agenda. I'm wondering if that 500 number
mhm.
is going to show up in their report, because the funding that, because this funding came out of work from the Developmental Disabilities Council, a vast majority of the funding is allocated for people who are eligible based on their developmental disability. So there's a lot more money on that report. And there also may be more people waiting for that. I'm just speculating here. I need to defer to my colleagues in OCDD when they go next.
Okay, that probably clarifies a little bit better. Thank you.
And there is 578 people on the waiting list for OCDD flexible family funds in Jefferson Parish. Region
Got
10.
it. Thank you, Bambi. That helps solve that mystery. I was confused about the 500. Great.
Any other questions about flexible family funds for Office of Behavioral Health? Okay, we can go on to, see, I'm losing my where I'm supposed to be. Our next report is also, Dr. Savicki, that's the supported living report. It's on the back of here.
Great, thank you. I do need to make a correction on this report. We got a correction from North Louisiana Human Services after we submitted this report to the council, so it didn't make it on your printed copy. But the accurate data from North Louisiana is that they are in fact 100% expended, not zero as was reading here. That was a reporting error. So they are 100% expended. As you can see, most of the LGEs are 100% expended. Metropolitan is on track. They're very close to 75%. capital area, again, much like how capital area manages this for the consumer care resources, they use a different funding source first. And then they essentially sort of catch up and use all of this funding at the end of the fiscal year. And so they are expressing that they're confident that they will get all the funds expended by the end of the fiscal year, as they typically do. Any questions on that?
Okay, no questions. And that will conclude the report for Dr. Sabicki. Thank you, Dr. Sabicki.
Thank you.
Now we'll move on to the Office for Citizens with Developmental Disabilities, report. Ms. Tanya Murphy is gonna be that report.
Hi, I'm Tanya Murphy. I work at the Office for Citizens with Developmental Disabilities, and my job is the Regional Operations Director, which is just a fancy way of saying that I'm the liaison between the 10 human service districts and authorities. I'm the liaison between those 10 to OCDD. So all of the programs that the LGEs are over, other than the waiver, I help make sure that they're following the manual and doing things the way they're supposed to be doing, and help to make sure it's uniform across the state. So today, I'm just going to talk about 2 of those programs. One of them, the Individual and Family Support Program, which is quite similar to the consumer, what do they call it? Consumer Care Resources, but in OCDD, we call it Individual and Family Support. In order for a family to request individual and family support services, they have to have what we call approval, which is indicating that the person that you're requesting services for meets the criteria of having an intellectual or developmental disability. Once a child or an adult receives a statement of approval or an SOA, then and they have an unmet need of some sort that's not being funded by a waiver, or they can't get it easily by Medicaid, they can request it from the Individual and Family Support Program. So each of the 10 LGEs has a certain amount of state general funds that they set aside or they budget to fund these individual and family support requests. And this is the report for Q3. And just as Dr. Civic mentioned, we would like to see the expended at 75% because it's the Q3, but this report is provided to the GD Council slightly before the Q3 invoices have all been received. So it's 62% statewide right now, but we have no worries. They're going to spend all this money. This column has a lot of those little things in parentheses that are red in color because the LGEs have shifted money from, sometimes they shift it from the Individual Family Support Program over to the Flexible Family Fund Program, depending on where the need is or where the waiting list might be, and also to make sure that they get all that money spent. If you look at the total statewide, the cumulative number of people served so far in the state with this program is 3,049. All of the LGEs have reported that they intend to spend all the money. Imperial Calcasieu, or MCAL, we call it both, took $20,000 from their Individual and Family Support Program and moved it over to their Flexible Family Fund. And their percentage rate was at 47, and that's why they're moving the money, because they were thinking we're not getting as many requests for IFS, but we have people on our waiting list for Flexible Family Fund. So I think they added quite a few slots. I think they went from 106 to 111 Flexible Family Fund slots that they're gonna keep filled, and that's gonna help spend some of that money. Are there any questions for Individual and Family Support?
Right, and I do not like these legal sheets, just FYI.
Yeah,
We all don't
I don't think you'd want to see it on a letter size sheet.
Oh,
Yeah, you would not be able to see it. Just be scared.
Okay, no questions online? Okay, no flexible family fund?
Okay, flexible family fund is in order for a family to get flexible family funds, they don't necessarily have to have an SOA, although we do prefer that families get that part done, but it's not a requirement of the program. They have to have what we consider to be a severe disability. So you might meet criteria to get the individual and family support with a statement of approval, and that might not mean you could also get flexible family fund. Flexible family fund is only for children under the age of, or up to 18, who have a severe disability. And we generally use exceptionalities from the schools to determine that level. And we also have a severity screening tool that we use. So families will fill out an application, submit it to the LGE, and then if they have the right exceptionalities so that it looks like they might meet criteria, they're put on the waiting list. Then when a slot becomes available, then they do that severity screening tool to see if they can actually start getting the money. And it's $258 a month. And every year annually, they look and say, do you still meet the criteria? Do you still meet the criteria? Every year, they got to make sure they still do. And as long as you still do, then they'll just keep getting the $258 a month until they age out of the program. We don't ask the families what they're spending that money on. We just know that there's an extraordinary expense for having a child in the home with a severe disability. And so we just provide $250 a month for the families to use to help that child stay living in the community. So, like Dr. Subcommittee said before me, because it's a set amount of money that comes out every month, it's a lot easier to make sure that it's spent on time. So you can see this is third quarter, 75%, and everybody anticipates spending the required 95%, most likely 100% of that budget. And this one, yeah, Jefferson Parish has 578 people on that waiting list. Statewide for developmental disability waiting list is 2,469. Not everybody on that waiting list meets the criteria to actually get flexible family fund. They meet the criteria to go on the waiting list, which is one step less than the actual severity screening to get the stipend. But we don't want to turn people away without really analyzing if they meet the criteria. So we put them on the waiting list, and then once a slot actually comes open, then we look and see. Any questions about flexible family fund?
Okay.
All right. So my last report is about Act 73. This is something that was recently, I think it was the DD Council
2017.
in 2017 asked to have all the LGEs take 9% of their total state general funds and put that amount of money towards these two programs, individual and family support and flexible family fund. So this report shows the total amount of state general funds that each LGE got for this fiscal year. The next column shows the amount equal to 9%. So this is the amount we want to see that they have budgeted towards these programs. The next column says what they actually budgeted towards these programs. And everybody is at or above the required 9%. The next column shows the total that's been expended so far through quarter 3. And and then the next column is what percentage of the 9% that equals. So we want by the end of the fiscal year to spend 100% of the 9%. I always like to draw attention to Northwest Louisiana Human Services District because they always put a lot more money towards their individual and intellectual developmental disability services. So, you know, have already spent 114% of their required 9%. So I'm like, yay, go Region 9 or 7. Anyway, so statewide, we're at 75%. Everybody looks on track to spend the 9% that we asked them to spend. Any questions about 73, Act 73?
I'll say, I think it was Central Louisiana, maybe last time, that did not appropriate enough. So I'm happy to see they have
Yeah,
fixed that issue.
they did. Yep, they were a little short in those first couple quarters, but they figured it out.
Awesome.
There is one, hand raised. It's Melinda Elliott.
Okay, Miss Melinda Elliott?
Yes, ma'am. So I'm looking at the chart and there's a couple of them that are, couple of three that are, not really close to 75%. What's gonna happen with those?
Are you looking at individual and family support or Act 73 or flexible
Act.
family fund?
Act 73.
The one that stands out to me is the Imperial Calc issue at 56%.
Okay,
And if you look on the other side where they have their explanation, that is the LGE that took the money out of their individual and family support program, moved it over to flexible family funds so that they could be assured to spend. And I did talk with their DD director, Dr. Scott Mesh, just the other day, and he said that he's already well aware that they are a little behind on getting this money spent, and they've sent out letters to the sport coordination agencies, and they're drumming up business and letting people know we've got the money to spend. So
and
I
do
have
you
no
happen
doubt
to
they'll
know if they're serving all 4 levels? Or are they only serving 1s or 2s? For their,
I would be really surprised if they weren't
IFS.
funding all of them. But that's certainly something I would have to ask.
okay, and then how about the one for 63%, the third one? That's still a good 12% away from 75, especially in the third quarter.
So I can just read the notes that the LGE provided. We are only at 58% expended due to shifts in funding source. Now that the waiver is covering some items that were otherwise covered in the 9% of state general funds, such as incontinence supplies, vocational services, and PCA services. Accounting for total amount of money we are obligated to spend, we are at 96%. So South Central has pending collection of invoices. So I guess they're saying there's some invoices that they haven't collected yet, so that's gonna bring the percentage up. And it sounds like they do intend to spend it.
Okay, it just seems like we're getting to crunch time. Thank you.
There's one more hand raised. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna try to pronounce the last name, Kenzie. Same.
Is Kenzie?
She's the DD director with South Central.
Oh,
She can answer.
Kenzie?
Hi, yes, I wanted to, can you guys hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I just wanted to answer, on behalf of South Central. Yeah, we were, a little behind as far as funding requests whenever we, submitted this last report. But, our IFS team has really processed, we went through all of our 1, 2, 3s and 4s and got our funding, all in place. And we are now, with a small balance of $6,000, and we do have some requests that are pending to fund that. So we are definitely going to spend it all down. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenzie.
Thanks, Kenzie.
You're welcome.
And it's Lassane, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, with that, we'll end the reports for OCDD. One issue that I wanted to bring up, we have about 15 minutes left, that I think it's important to Act 378, and it is a House Bill 559. That is a legislative instrument right now, was heard in the House Health and Welfare Committee yesterday. It is to basically redesign our LGEs, pretty drastically. I am not an expert on it. I know that in the previous committee, there was some discussion about it, but I think that it's really important for this committee and the people who are attending to understand what is being proposed, and take the appropriate action that they think they should take on it. Is there anyone here that would be willing to explain the bill? I'm looking at Julie or Brenton, Ebony.
I mean, it does a lot, I don't know.
Yes.
I figure Julie would be the best to talk about it, but in a nutshell, the things that I'm looking at are it essentially would, I guess, in a way, centralize your LGEs, so it gives the Surgeon General and the Secretary, I think both of them, the authority, I guess, to hire the executive directors of your LGEs. It also creates this council, which I cannot recall exactly what that council does, but one of the components there is this council does not really have any sort of representation from folks that utilize the services by those LGEs. Part of Act 73 that Tanya was talking about, it has that component of the 9%, but it also dictates how much of your board should be represented or representative of the DD population or folks that service the DD population. And so I don't think this bill, at least the way that I interpret it, gets rid of the LGE boards, but in a way it makes them kind of useless. I mean, they have no hiring or appointing authority of their director. So I don't know what they would be doing. I'm just making sure that you're following whatever the strategies are that has been sent down from the department. I'm not sure. But in a nutshell, that's what it does. It's bringing the LGEs back under LDH. I don't say control, but I guess that's what it is.
The only thing I'll add is, after having watched, I guess I would say, not like in an effort to explain them. I think one of the things that came out during testimony during health and welfare yesterday was that there's a lot of uncertainty with the way the bill is written, kind of what it would do and what it wouldn't do. There was also a lot of public testimony from the local governing entity executive directors talking about the oversight. It was just from testimony that sort of what they were hoping to get at was some increased accountability for the LGEs and maybe some a desire to have more consistency. But I guess there was then discussion, well, if they're more consistent, then how can they be regionally responsive? So I do know that if they do, they mentioned that they wanted to, quote, do work on the bill. So I would anticipate seeing more amendments and that they will be, they mentioned, I haven't seen the agenda yet, it might be too far ahead, but that it would be going back to health and welfare next week. So if there are people who, would want to testify about what their thoughts are in terms of the structure of the LGEs, the accountability for the LGEs or anything around that discussion, to watch for it being heard in health and welfare, because it sounded as if they were saying they were open to amendments or getting it in a posture that that would be relevant for folks, but that, and that it may be doing some tweaks, I think, to what current statute is, or reach out to reach out to Representative Eccles, he's sponsored the bill, and that might be a mechanism to, to do that. Because it did sound as if they were open to modifications, but that ultimately the goal, where it sounded like they landed, was how do we ensure accountability and consistency where it makes sense to have consistency across some of the LGEs. So if folks do have thoughts or suggestions, or is that important, is that not important, I do think they sounded like there was an openness to try to get it in a posture that
And I know, I think in the last committee meeting, Julie, you had mentioned it's not a department bill. This is something Representative Eccles brought. To me, it was pretty clear in his presentation of the legislation in committee, he had not spoken with the LGEs when he brought this information. I think he referenced maybe a meeting a couple years back that he was in, where I think he had mentioned he was, I guess it was LDH secretary, he was asking a lot of questions about LGEs, and the answer kept being, I don't know. And he kind of felt like, well, this is under LDH, why do you not know? And I guess that was maybe sort of one of his reasons for trying to make some of these changes. He also mentioned that he had looked at some plans during sort of strategic meeting that he was involved in. And I guess maybe some of the plans that LDH was focusing on, he felt that LGE's plans were not matching. Most of the directors at the meeting were asking for very specific examples of what didn't match. And because they stated that they try to align their plans with LDH, and I think even their plans do get sent to LDH for approval or discussion or something of that nature. So it seems like there was not a lot of conversation between any parties before this came about. So I'm hoping, I mean, it appeared Representative Eccles was very willing to work with the LGEs. I will say, if you aren't close with any of your LGEs, or if you are an employee of an LGE, you're on this call, they were blasted during this meeting, especially by Chairman Miller, because it kept coming up. There's 10 LGEs and only 4 of you are here. And I think there is an expectation that this bill was deferred for a week, and everybody better be there to talk about what they're doing. Because if you're obviously in support of keeping LGEs the way they are now, he wants, well, not just he as in chairman, but a lot of the committee members actually want to know why.
But the LGE should have been there.
Yeah.
I mean, I would think even for the directors, even for personal, I mean, like, it's changing the whole format of who hires them and who fires them, like that. Just, and if you're proud of the work that you do, which, you know, I would hope they are, they should be there. So I understand that argument. I am a member of the Acadiana Human Service District Board. I'm on the board, and I know that I've learned a lot being on the board, from being on the DD Council to being on Acadiana area. And what I found is during the meetings, there's not a lot of in-depth conversation about DD services. And I've asked it, I mean, we get a report, and Acadiana operates very well in DD services, in my opinion. But with the response that I got is because there's so much oversight with OCDD, like the services that they provide is prescriptive by law. The waivers, there's a certain protocol. All the, you know, there's not a lot of flexibility in the services. There's the services that are funded through DD services, and they follow the protocol and the rules. Of course, there's some flexibility in like the flexible family funds and what they, you know, pay for and that type of thing. But under behavioral health, there's a lot of different, I mean, there's, you know, different programs. They'll get grant funding from federal grant funding, all types of different programs, some very, you know, good programs that I think that helps meet people's needs, you know, at the local level. But I do see where sometimes there can be like a question of the consistency across, and particularly in the behavioral health area. The other issue that I see is that we need people to be members of those boards. They're not the most exciting boards to be a part of. I mean, it's really, you're hearing reports, you're asking some questions, but it's just not the most exciting, and it takes people time away from their jobs, and there's a lot of requirements for people to go. But right now we've been having for a few months, 2 of our parishes don't have a representative. Their police juror has not appointed anybody to the board. And I'm sure that's an issue in other regions. So if we want things on a local level, we need to ensure that we're getting people on the board who want to see those services in our local areas. So I think that's probably consistent across the state, that they have those issues that that I just mentioned. But I think having local government, keeping it at local level is really important, and we need to show the legislature why it's important to keep it at the local level. So.
It's definitely a polarizing issue. We've done some advocacy for various programs. I mean, last year's Flexible Family Fund, we've done some IFS advocacy, different things for LGBTs. And it's a very different response depending on what legislator you talk to. They're not all in agreement with LGEs, whether you love them or hate them. It's been very different. And same with the families. There's a lot of folks, policymakers and families that want to keep it centralized at the state level, and there's a lot that want to keep it, more local. So it's, it's a perfect opportunity if you have the chance, depending on how you feel, what would be the best option to say what you need to say and, try to make your point as to why it should either stay the same or some changes be.
Do we have any comments on it? No questions? Okay. I think, again, I just want to reiterate, I think that it's important that this legislation, the creation of these local governing entities, the human service districts, to get local appointments, to get the things like Brenton said earlier, the membership requirements and those type of things. We as citizens have gained the power through legislation to make decisions on money to be spent in our region. So if we don't act on that power, we don't take on those roles, then someone is going to come and take that power. And I think that we've all seen in recent, things that are happening all over the place, what happens when people have power. So don't give up the power that you have. So, consider being on those human service districts. Look up your human service districts, see who the memberships are, see if there's any openings. If there's openings that you could be appointed to, or someone that could be appointed to, then people should get involved and engaged in that. That's my sermon. Okay. Okay, let me put on my glasses up and read the end. Okay, so now we can have announcements and public comment. Please note that after this meeting, our Education and Employment Committee will meet in this room starting at 4:15. Also, tomorrow is the full council meeting, which will start at 10 a.m. It will also be in the same room. Those that have registered to participate virtually should have the links to the meetings in their email. Does anyone on the committee have any other announcements to make? Yes, ma'am.
No, I'm not on the committee, but I do have an announcement. I just kind of want to make a public announcement that the Lieutenant Governor, Billy Nungesser, will be here tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. to address the council. And so I'm encouraging all council members, but also members of the public to come out. I think he is going to be listening for concerns or issues that our community is facing right now. So I think it's really important that everyone's here, and if you have concerns or issues, you make those known while he's here. I think it's a great opportunity for all of our council members to speak to someone who's higher up in our state government and talk about some of the concerns that we have as a disability community. And that's all I have.
That's really great. And the Lieutenant Governor has always been very good about disability issues from my perspective. So I think that's really great. Thank you, Ebony. Do any of you, do we have anyone wishing to share public comment? Okay. So I hereby adjourn the meeting at 3:59. Perfect time. 1 minute to spare.
Thanks, everyone.